So this is 5.2, page 185. And some of you I said you could go ahead and do this one. It says Kyle's school needed to buy posters for a fundraiser. The school had a budget of $147. Each poster cost $13. About, there's a key word, about. So we know that this is going to be an estimate. It may not be exactly right. It's going to be close. And it's kind of hard to grade when we're talking about estimates because let's say the answer is 10. And so maybe somebody would put 9 or somebody would put 11. I wouldn't consider that wrong. And would 8 be wrong though? I mean, that's 2 away. Would 12 be wrong? You know, I'm not a big fan of estimating, but we'll do this together here. So $147 divided by 13. I think I would just change this to 150. And gosh, you could go either way. Somebody might say, well, how about 10? Somebody else might say, well, what about 15? And either one would really work. And most of you, I think, if you looked at 150 and it was being divided by 10, you would know the answer is 15. But if you can't do that mentally, you could still get rid of a 0 on each one. So this becomes 15 divided by what? 1. Well, what's 15 divided by 1? 15, which is what I just said this was. Okay? So it's approximately 15. Okay? Now, if you had changed the 13 to 15, it would have been a little bit different. The answer would have been roughly 10. So it says you can solve the problem any way you choose. Some of you may have done it a little bit differently, and that's okay. Down at the bottom of the page, it says what numbers are close to 147 and 13. And so what did I use? I used 150 and I used 10. Okay, so that's all they're looking for right there at the bottom of the page. All right, turn to page 186. It's just an example. I'm not going to bother going through it. I'll let you guys look at it. I'm not worried about the convince me at the bottom of the page. You can just put a line through that. Now let's get into some of the problems here. I'm on page 187 now, the guided practice. 187. So it says here, Ella has 425 more bracelets to sell. She wants to store in these bags, in each bag she wants to hold 20 bracelets, looks like. Okay? She estimates that she'll need about 25 bags. Do you agree? Why or why not? Let's do some estimating here. We could call 425. How about just 400? Okay? And if it's got to be in 20 bracelets, each bag has to have 20 bracelets. We'll just leave that as a 20. And we could get rid of a 0 in each one. So now we have 40 divided by 2. What's 40 divided by 2? What's half of 40? 20, yeah. Okay. And so she came up with 25, 20, 25. It's off a little bit, but I mean, I would say yes. And then, do you agree? Why or why not? Let's see, estimate of 20 is close to 25. Okay? So, again, some of you may have done that a little differently. That's okay. Let's look at some of these here. Again, we're estimating. We're not looking for an exact answer. Okay? 287 divided by 42. Well, I'm trying to think. It says compatible numbers, and in the other class, a couple of people asked me, what do they mean by compatible numbers? We're talking about numbers that fit well together, like the pieces of a puzzle. Okay? Dovetailing is a term that you may have heard somebody say. Two things that fit together nicely. So 287 and 42. Well, that doesn't work. Well, how about, let's just try 280 divided by, let me move this in a little bit here so you guys can see a little better. 280 divided by, how about 40? Okay. So I see compatible numbers here. Does 4 go into 28 evenly? It sure does. How many times? 7. 7 times. Okay. There's your answer. Okay. And I didn't, I could have scratched out those 2 zeros, 28 divided by 4, and the answer is 7. I didn't add a 0 because I used them. There wasn't any leftover zeros to add on to my answer. Okay? How about this one? 320 divided by 11. Well, you could call this 300 or you could leave it as 320. I mean, either way would work. Let's just go with 300. And I heard somebody say it, change the 11 to 10. That makes sense. Well, how many times does 10 fit into 300?
30.
Yeah, 30 times. And a lot of you could just look at that and you'd know. Oh, it's 30. Okay? But for those of you that still struggle doing this mentally, you could still work with this. Cross out a 0, cross out a 0. And then what do we have here? We have 30 divided by what? What was left? 1. What's that equal? 30. 30 divided by 1 is 30. That's the answer we came up with. Okay? Number 4 is a little different than some of the examples we've seen so far. I think it's obvious we could just make it 70. But 208, a lot of you might say, well, how about 200?
No, 210.
Yeah, 210. Because why? Well, yeah, go ahead.
Because if you take away the 2 zeros at the end of both of them, 7 fits into 21 evenly.
That's right. If we took away the 0 and the 70 and the 0 and the 210, it becomes 21 divided by 7. And, most of you know what that is, and the answer is 3. Okay? We don't need to add a 0 to the 3 because we didn't have any left over that we didn't use. All right? Let's look at number 12 here. Down at the bottom, number 12. Larger numbers now. So let's see here. Again, got to think in terms of compatible numbers. Some of you might just say, well, I'm going to make this 1700 divided by 60. And my comment to you is that's not going to work. Because does 6 go into 17 evenly? No. But what does 6 go into evenly? 18. I saw some of you mouth that, so we could do 1800 divided by 60. All right? Mr. Smith, what's the next step in solving this little problem here? What do I need to get rid of? Yeah, so I can get rid of a 0 here and a 0 here. So now we have 180 divided by 6. So that's kind of a big number, Mr. Smith, but what 2 numbers could I think about that would go into 6? Right here, the first 2 numbers, what are they? 18. How many times does 6 go into 18? 3 times. Now, we're not done, Mr. Smith, because there's a 0 that we did not factor in. What do I do with that 0? So the answer for number 12 is 30. Okay? Hang on with the questions. All right. Next one here, number 13. Let's look at that one together. All right, number 13. Some of you might be thinking, well, I'm just going to make it 7,000. But again, think in terms of compatible numbers. And I think you could probably all realize this maybe could be 80. But looking at just the digit 8, what could that fit into here?
26.
26?
72.
72.
7,200.
7,200, okay? So, Mr. Coggins, since you blurted out, go ahead and help me out with the rest of it here. You're pretty excited about this. 8 goes into 72 how many times?
9.
9 times. So, because we're just looking at 72 divided by 8 at this point, because we know we can get rid of a 0 here and a 0 here, and there's a 0 that we wouldn't have accounted for, and you did say 9, and so here's that 1 0 we didn't use. What do we do with that? Add it to the end, so number 13 is 90. Okay? Hopefully you guys are starting to see a pattern with these. How about number 19? Let's do one more together here. Number 19. Now I'm looking for a compatible number. Here's the digit that I want to work with. I'm just going to turn this to 80. So I want to think of a number that's close to, well, what? 43, really. Close to 43. What's that?
Can I talk to Isabella?
Isabella?
Yes.
Oh, 2 doors down.
Oh, do you
We switched classes.
Oh,
Last name. Give me the last name.
Campbell.
Yeah. Oh, all right.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, lost my train of thought here. So, you know we're dealing with the first 2 digits almost all the time, Miss Clark. So, what 2 digits, what number is close to 43 that would work with 8? All right, for number 19 here. What do you think, Miss Clark? Any idea? Who knows? Miss Pettit. Yeah, 4,000. That would work. I'd be okay with that. You know what I thought of was 45. But 40 would also. Well, actually, no, 40 wouldn't work. Wait, 8. Does 8 go into 40? Evenly? 8 times 5 is 40. My bad. Put up 2 class points. I made a mistake. Brain fart. So, so she said 4,000. So 8 goes into 40 5 times. And there's a 0, right? No. There. Oh, well, we got to cancel a 0 here and a 0 here. So, yeah, there's 1 0 we didn't use. And so you would add that in for number 19, and it would be 50. Now, look, I'll show you. Shh. Let me show you. Look, we decided on 4,000, right? Divided by 80. Let me move this up so you can see it. Okay? So, is there a 0 we can get rid of? Sure is. Now what do we have? 400 divided by 8. Okay? And as she pointed out, 8 goes into 40. What? 5 times. And there's 1 0 we didn't use. And so you just add that in. Okay? Hang on with the questions. All right. Let's see here. I'll